feel that you truly believe in your heart to heart that something is wrong with your child, you take them to the doctor. I don't care if you're taking them to the ER or to a pediatrician. I do recommend you take them to the same doctor over and over and over again, because they're going to have your record.
And consistency.
It's consistency. But, so I take my son to the doctor. The pediatrician who I interviewed, you can interview your pediatrician in advance. It's highly recommended. You sit down, you ask him a bunch of questions. How do you feel about circumcision? How do you feel about breastfeeding? How do you feel about bottle feeding? Like, these are all...
It can also get you, a leg up on knowing what your personal requests are going to be.
Absolutely. And so you can see the personality of this doctor. So this pediatrician whom I interviewed, highly recommended. #1 doctor in our area. He won numerous awards. So he has to be a great doctor. And I'm sure he is. I just don't see him anymore. I literally took my 3-week-old child to the doctor every 3 days for 3 weeks and told him there was something wrong with my baby. He slept all day. He never cried. Y'all, babies should cry. That's a thing. You don't like it. I know. It's annoying. It's sad. But they should cry. He never cried.
Point.
Ever, ever, ever. Never, ever, ever.
It's how they tell you they need something.
Yep. He never cried. And I was like, that's not normal. And he sleeps all the time. By 3 weeks old, most babies are waking up and at least looking at you every so often. He did not. And so by 6 weeks, I thought he was dying. And it turns out he was. So he was vomiting his entire bottle up. Like, think of The Exorcist, the original, mind you, the original Exorcist movie.
Extra graphic version.
Absolutely. That's what it looked like every time I tried to feed him. Projectile vomiting, he could hit the wall across the room type stuff. And I told the doctor, and he looked at me in the eye and said, I'm a young mother, and I obviously just don't understand what a full bottle looks like, and I should just dump one out on the bed to see what it looks like, so I'll feel better about it. And I looked at him, and I said...
I do more laundry, sir.
I said, do you think I'm a complete idiot? I said, I need you to check out my child. And I said, I want a full workup done on my child. Mind y'all, I'm 19 years old, so I'm a very young mama. So I can get where he's coming at. He did a full workup on my baby. Do y'all want to know what? My baby was 7'7" when he was born. He was 6 weeks old, and he weighed 7'9".
That's not okay.
That's not okay. They should be at least a whole pound heavier by that point. And so then he goes, hey, there's something wrong with your baby. And I was going, duh, I already knew that. I already told you. So many tests later, he realized, hey, my son's not urinating properly either. Duh, he's not eating anything.
He doesn't have anything
He has nothing in him. So, Mother's Day weekend, we're in the hospital, and my son has surgery for pyloric stenosis, which is common in firstborn, mostly white males. I've heard it happens in other races, but if you Google it,
that's
white
what it says.
Males. Yep, and it's usually firstborn. Though I learned recently my brother-in-law, who is the secondborn and of Hispanic descent, also had pyloric stenosis.
Well, look at that.
So that's not a rule, but that's the most common. So anyway, we broke up with that doctor because even though after the fact he did treat my son, I felt obviously he is not listening to me, and I'm a concerned parent, and I felt like he should have taken my concerns very serious, especially if I'm in his office every 2 to 3 days.
Absolutely.
So, break up with your doctors if you don't like them. It's that simple. And you want to know what I did? I just went down the hall because it's a giant facility. And I went to the front desk and I said, I just need to know who else has availabilities. I don't want to see this gentleman anymore. And the nurse goes, okay, you can start seeing so-and-so. And I said, great. And y'all want to know what? I love that doctor. I think if he'd asked me to marry him, I would have. But he had a lovely family and he had all that stuff going for him. So we didn't.
So he was in a good place.
He was in a good place. But he was the most gentlest and nicest doctor besides my new doctor we see now. He's right up there with him. But y'all, this doctor, when he left the facility, he went to go work for St. Jude's Hospital. So that just shows you the type of compassion that doctor had.
Right.
He went to go do his dream job. So kudos to that pediatrician. I was sad.
And there was no proposal.
Yeah, well, can't win them all. So, you want them to listen to you and any concerns that you may have. That's the most important thing. Scheduling appointments is also going to be very important. Like, how do you make your appointments? All doctor offices these days are very different.
Yes. Some of them you can just do on the app, and be done with it and even have a video conference. But some appointments you have to be in person.
Absolutely. And with the COVID times, is that what we're calling
changed
this?
everything.
It changed everything. So you can't just call your doctor's office and just roll up there anymore. You have to call, make an appointment, and they will see you when they can see you, however they choose to see you.
Never take walk-ins.
That's
not a thing anymore.
Not anymore.
When I was growing up, we were always a walk-in.
I don't even think most, like, urgent cares take walk-ins anymore. You still have to, like, call them and see if they'll see you. Like, it's nuts out there, people. So have your doctors picked. Consistency, scheduling. You should know if your pediatrician is going to take a last-minute appointment. Some doctors' offices only do sick appointments during certain times of the day.
Yes.
I know my current doctor's office does. They do the health checkups first thing in the morning, and then illnesses in the afternoon.
But that's just a smart practice on their part, because then they're going from a clean room into a contaminated room.
Absolutely. And so it's in the grand scheme of things is a really great idea, because you know that a sick person and a healthy person are not sharing the same room.
But if your kid is really, really sick and needs to get seen like right away, so we know whether or not we need to leave there and go to the hospital, you might want to see someone first thing in the morning.
You might want to see them first thing in the morning. And so knowing when they have their appointments is important. And some doctors are flexible, right? Like,
yes,
they're not all going to hold you to this line of, I'm sorry, your child is not healthy. He has to wait till 3 p.m. to be seen. If your doctor's office does that, you might want to reconsider your doctor's office.
Especially if you're like, oh, by the way, he gashed open his hand.
Absolutely. That would be something to go see your doctor about. Y'all, my toddler has really just pulls me through a loop. We've had head gashes and gone to the ER to have him glued back together for him to literally split it back open that same evening. So,
Boys.
So, but the
and
pediatrician
some girls,
is
like
important.
Me.
Well,
growing up.
I was trying to think. I don't think, well, that's not true. I was in the ER apparently a lot as a child. I just don't remember most of it. Breaking the bones, though. I remember those doctor visits. I was much older, though, and I totally did those all on my own, y'all. So, my parents, I must have been such a delight to them. They probably had doctors on speed dial.
Well, so you know what type of appointment you're scheduling. You're also going to need to know what your expectations are. So with sick appointments, normally what happens is you get shuttled to a room as quickly as possible. You may or may not have a weight done on your child. If you know it's been a while since they've been weighed, and for the smaller they are, it needs to be the most recent. So I'd say if they're under 6 months of age, they need to have been weighed within the last month before you go straight to that room. If they haven't, you need to tell the nurse that's taking you back, hey, I really think we need to get a quick weight.
Absolutely.
That way everything is accurate to the medications you're getting and things like that.
Because if your little's been sick for a while, they've probably not eating.
Yes.
Maybe not drinking. And weight tells them this. Because
tells a lot.
Your kid should always be gaining weight. It's a reality. Even as adults, we're always gaining weight. So
let's not bring that into this.
So your child should always be gaining weight. I know recently my little was very, very, very sick, and like for an entire week we were like almost forcing liquids down him, and the best way we could get him to drink was through a syringe. Y'all, it's awful.
Never works out for me.
He thought it was fun, right? Drinking out of the syringe is much funner than drinking out of a cup.
He's just had too much medication in his life, and he's like, nope.
Yeah, you ain't falling for that one.
You can't come near me with the syringe.
That was the only way we could get him to drink, and I just remember he lost so much weight. He went from being like 32 pounds to being like 27 pounds. So that's crazy. Huge weight loss, y'all. And that was within a week.
What is that, like an eighth of his body weight?
In a week. And I told the doctor, I was like, he just won't eat. I cannot make him eat. But he also ran a really high fever for a week. We were going in for antibiotic shots every day. It was nuts. But having a good doctor who trusts you and your abilities as a mom is important too, because you are responsible for that child. And the doctor has to trust that if I tell you, hey, here's what you can do to take care of your baby on your own, great. Because my son probably could have been in the hospital. Like, I hate going to the hospital, y'all. But the goal is to stay out of the hospital, right? That's our whole goal. We don't want to be in the hospital. So pediatricians that you are comfortable with and communicate with and that you understand each other. Yeah, and the longer you're with somebody like that, the better rapport you'll build.
And a lot of times, especially if you're a first-time parent, is you will need to take notes while you're there on what they say.
Absolutely.
And it might be something that's as simple as, hey, make sure that you're giving Motrin and Tylenol interchangeably. That way, they'll constantly have something on board for fevers. You'll need to know what is normal on urinating. If they tell you this a lot when you're sick a lot. If they aren't urinating within like a 6-hour period, is that okay for that weight of your child? So they'll tell you like an hour to hour, minute to minute what you need to be looking at. Mine has gone through lots of health things, but one of them, when they're really sick for long periods of time, you'll learn how to deal with giving small amounts of liquids. So like say 15 mils of water, and then you wait 10 minutes, and then you give them 15 mils of water, and it's insane.
That's crazy.
What happens and how they tell you. But if you take notes, it will not only help you for right then, but also if you have another child, or if you have a friend with a child that's late at night and they don't want to go to the ER right away.
Which is what we've totally done on numerous occasions,
yes,
y'all.
Like, we need to share our opinions, what's happening. Also, whenever you have a healthy visit, there are expectations you should have. One of which that I never realized was whenever I went into my pediatrician, I had to fill out so much paperwork. And we spoke about it in our last episode, is you need to have that person in your life that is your buddy system. The first year, at least, when you go to the pediatrician, try to have a friend. And the reason isn't because of necessarily the child's appointment. It's because you have to fill out paperwork every single visit about your mental health, about their behavior, whether or not they can pick up a cup or not. And if they can't pick up a cup, but they can like hold some chalk and draw on the ground. Very similar, put yes, by the way. You just really have to think through it like they're just trying to give similar tasks. And if your child you've never asked, hey, what's your name? And they can't say it because you never asked. Well, then ask them, hey, what's your name? While you're sitting there. And then you can fill out your paperwork appropriately. But it also has to do with your mental health as well as the parent. And then kids have to be held down.
Yes.
They have to be restrained a lot.
Yes.
So having that buddy there with you is a huge benefit to you getting the appropriate paperwork done before you have to struggle with a milk bottle and a dirty diaper and this and that. And they can restrain during vaccines.
Mm-hmm.
Because they want you out of that room.
They do. Like, it's the same thing. They're on a schedule. They've got people they've got to see. They need to get you in. They need to get you out. And they want to make sure they're doing the best job possible. Taking a buddy with you just helps speed that process along. It can be your husband or your spouse or your partner, significant other. It doesn't have to be your bestie. But if that's who's available, you call that bestie and be like, please come with me. I don't care how awkward this is. I really need help. Because you don't know how hard it is to fill out paperwork with a squirming infant. And that is crying.
Talking about it being awkward, there are moments in your child's life that you may have to have very awkward conversations with that doctor. Mm-hmm. And mine, at a very young age, had to be tested for hormone levels. So every single visit since, and I told you we've had a lot of visits, every single visit, we have to check his penile size and his scrotum size, his testes size, all of that. And not only that, but they have to measure some things at times to double check and make sure. So keep that in mind when you have a buddy that, you know, you might have an awkward conversation.
They should totally know those things because that can get awkward really fast.
Because then they'll look at you for moral support and they're supposed to be for your moral support.
It changes the room too much. You gotta have your roles laid out well in advance.
Before we go in, by the way, the doctor will be measuring my son's penis.
Yes. Yes. But
it's okay.
But some pediatricians deal with more specialty type things than that. Like, not every pediatrician is going to be comfortable helping you with, like, genetic abnormalities. And
heart conditions.
Knowing
which mine has as well.
Knowing which doctor is going to see you is important because you just don't know.
And
right?
you want them to be able to understand that condition and be able to know that, oh, the heart murmur is still there.
Mm-hmm.
Mine in particular.